John Byrne is one of the all-time great comic book artists. He's also a great writer, he inks, he's done it all for both Marvel and DC, and independent comics too. John Byrne has breathed new life into these iconic characters, and in this video, we take a look at some of the highlights. Byrne is perhaps best known for his run on the original X-Men series, which stretched from issue 108 through 143. There were two storylines that really cemented John Byrne as a superstar. The Dark Phoenix saga, which saw Jean Grey become a menacing, ultra-powerful being, and Days of Future Past, which featured an alternate future where most of the X-Men were killed. Now, if you enjoyed the Days of Future Past movie, you will definitely love reading this John Byrne masterpiece, which spans 2 X-Men issues, numbers 141 and 142. Byrne left the X-Men books and moved over to breathe new life into another huge Marvel title, the Fantastic Four. Byrne issues run from 232 all the way up to 293. That's about 60 issues. During this time, John Byrne not only wrote many issues, but he also did all of the artwork. One of my favorite issues is issue 243, where Galactus shows up and he's so weak that Reed Richards has to make a tough decision, whether or not to save Galactus from dying. Later in the Byrne run, Reed Richards actually stands trial for the supposedly heinous crime of saving Galactus. It's a super interesting story, and the artwork is so grand and cosmic in scope. To me, it's the closest thing to the original Jack Kirby and Stan Lee run that we'll get. Now, I'm from Canada, so one of my favorite John Byrne creations was his run on Alpha Flight in the early 1980s. This superhero team is like a Canadian version of the Avengers, and it featured superheroes like Aurora, North Star, Puck, and the Guardian. Now, if you like Deadpool, you'll love a similarly styled book called The Sensational She-Hulk. In this book, which debuted in the 1980s, there's a lot of humor and action, and She-Hulk will often talk right to the reader, which is something that Deadpool would be famous for about a decade later. John Byrne left his mark on DC Comics as well. DC made a huge move in the 1980s to update Superman from their classic Curt Swan look to a more modern John Byrne look. The Man of Steel is a mini-series that was a precursor to the monthly Superman series. The artwork is spectacular and completely updates the look and feel of Superman, who had been created 50 years earlier in 1938. If you're in the mood for a pure John Byrne original creation that isn't tied to Marvel or DC, why not give The Next Men a read? This came out in 1992, and it only ran for 32 issues, but it provides a very unique glimpse into a John Byrne story that isn't confined to established superhero conventions. It features science fiction, people with amazing superpowers, and of course awesome John Byrne artwork. The comic book industry imploded in the 1990s and took out many series, and The Next Men was one such casualty. However, fans can grab back issues of the Next Men comics for relatively cheap and enjoy one of the masters when it comes to classic storytelling and comic book art. Thanks a lot for watching. What's your favorite John Byrne story or artwork? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below.